Good evening, everyone. Charlotte here from Enriching Environments for Top Tip Tuesday on Instagram Live for Tuesday the 25th of January. And I'm just going to give you all a few moments to come on, as I know that lots of people wanted to come on this evening for this topic. Specifically toddler topic. I'm doing lots of toddler topics at the moment, and I've got them all lined up actually for the next couple of weeks as well. I've had so many questions about normal toddler behaviour, but when you are the parent of a toddler, particularly first time round, it all seems hi Harry, it all seems really confusing and quite alarming in some situations as well. So I've got loads of toddler questions. I was speaking to a parent today who gave me two ideas for the next 2 sessions. So there's lots of really good stuff on the way. And this evening we are going to be talking about play and playfulness. So firstly, the benefits of play. We'll go through that really quickly. I think in terms of the general awareness around play, these days there's so much information, really beautiful resources available to us to let us know how important play is and the value that we as parents can be placing and should be placing upon the importance of play. One of my favourite Dr. Montessori quotes is, "Play is the work of the child," and we really must treat it as such, with the hi everyone who's coming on, with the importance that it deserves. So very quickly, the benefits of play. They cover every single aspect of development. So physical development, cognitive development, language, social, emotional and spiritual development. So all of those areas of development are benefited by play, and by play I mean unscheduled and unstructured play, with not outcome driven. Just all young children, as I'm sure you know, are process driven, not outcome driven. So it's literally just time to, as adults I guess we'd call it, pottering about at home, and children need that space and time to play. Through play is hi Arina. Through play is how children process how they're feeling, process their emotions, process how they're feeling, process what happened in their day. Both my children, after we finish school for the day and then come home, they will spend a good hour playing with their teddies, coming in. My children are almost 5 and 7. My son's almost 5 and my daughter's 7. And they will spend a good amount of time, a long amount of time, playing with their teddies, and I can see the processing that's going on, the emotional development that is taking place as they go through those play scenarios. They're making sense of what happened in their day, what happened in the classroom, what happened in the garden when they were playing, all the interactions that they'd have. All of those things take place during play, that processing. So it's really important that we as parents give the space and time that our children need to be able to do that play. And a huge part of that is our role in it as well. We don't need to do anything other than be there. So when we just let the child, hi Ivana, hi Huda, we let the child guide us through. Thank you for the hearts. Hi Katie, we let the child guide us as they are playing. We try not to impose what we think should be happening, or Huda and I had conversations about this, about our children's play and how much we actually enjoy it. But what we can do is just really allow our child to lead it, because their imagination is all comes from literally inside their head. That's their expression of creativity. If we put our version of imagination onto that, and our version of, I don't know, fantasy or mythical creatures, then that's all imagination from an adult's perspective, not a child's perspective. So what's really beautiful is when we get, when our children get to the verbal stage and role play and things like that, we can, and that really develops from about the age of 3 onwards, depending on the child. For Olivia and Harry, they've been doing lots and lots of role play since Harry was about 3 and Olivia was 5, and they still do it now, so much of it, and playing with the teddies, dressing and undressing the teddies. I'm in a toddler environment actually at their school, and so a lot of their play at the moment is around pretending they've got toddlers that they're looking after, which is just really gorgeous to see and to witness and to be part of. So playing with our children is so important, and it's knowing those moments when do we step back because they're playing on their own, and when do we engage because we can see that they really want us to play with them. But if we can, as much as is humanly possible, and it's so hard because we've got busy lives, but when our child asks us to play, if we can play with them for those 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever we have, that is so valuable in building bonds and building connections. And what I know I have done in the past and still do, but try not to do, is I'll be in the middle of doing something like, cooking or cleaning or clearing up or unpacking everything after the school day, and they'll want to play, and I'll say, I'll just finish this first, and then of course when I defer them for so long, then their desire for that play has gone. So what's really hard to do is that when they want us to play with them, is there anything else, household chores or anything that can be left till later, for us to, as much as possible, to be with them in that moment and play when they need it, because then their love tank, their cup is filled more if we can play with them when they need it. And then we build those beautiful bonds and build those beautiful connections with them. And I'm not to say that that's not difficult, and not to say there's days that will happen and that won't happen, and not to say that we won't feel resentful of that, sometimes as well. I work full time. When we come back in from school, we're all tired. I want to get on with the evening. I want to get on with the day. Preparation for the following day. It's really hard for me to put that to one side and play when they want to, rather than get on with the busy adult things that I need to get onto. So it's definitely a skill, and it can bring up some interesting feelings for us as well. I remember on my podcast series last year, Pilar, who was episode 7, talked about how she was doing with her daughter, and saying, I'll just finish this and I'll just finish that before she would play with her daughter. And then her daughter called her out on it and said, why do you always make me wait? It's not fair. I want you to play with me. And then Pilar said that she did, Pilar was doing some therapy and looked into it in therapy, and looked at some inner child healing, and found that there was something in there from her childhood that she felt she always had to, there was never enough time for her. So she would grab these times when she could do her own thing and then make her child wait, because that's how she felt in her childhood, and she was unconsciously repeating that pattern. And it's just so amazing when Pilar said that in the podcast. That's episode 7 of the Montessori Mission. Actually, you can find that here on Instagram, YouTube, Spotify, iTunes, all the platforms for podcasts. And if you want the video, YouTube, but if you want the video with subtitles, it's here on Instagram. The Spotify and iTunes, of course, are audio. And so when Pilar spoke about that, how she had to look at her own inner child and the needs of her inner child to understand what was really going on with the dynamic with her daughter, then she was able to more easily step into that place of play and loving attention with her daughter, because she had resolved the background childhood wounds that were associated with always having to wait till last. So that's really a really interesting element. Sorry, I've gone really deep and a bit off the tangent there, but certainly if we can know that those two things, one, our children's play is, can we keep that sacred? It's so important. Those moments of our children having unscheduled and unstructured free play, they are so valuable. They are building social, emotional, physical, cognitive skills is all part of that development, and it nourishes their soul as well. Having space and time, they in a play scenario that's entirely child-led, the child is in control. So even if something happened during the day or at school, or they're going through something in their own lives, or the family are going through something, a job loss or a divorce or something like that, play is so healing for a child, because they process all of their feelings through the play they're doing with their teddies or their dollies or the role play, whatever they're doing. So it's something that is immensely valuable, and we can place at a higher importance than any other extra classes, any other scheduled activities. Anything else that's adult-led should go below what is child-led. So our child's need for free play, unstructured, unscheduled, is better than any swimming lesson, any ballet class, any taekwondo class. I mean, I'm just using those examples. I've got nothing against any of those activities. But where I'm coming from, the lens I'm seeing this through, is for young children, nothing is more important than free time, unstructured, unscheduled play, for them to be in control and them to lead. And extra activities and classes, we can do when they're older. Early childhood is not the time to focus on those type of activities. They can be done later when the child's much older, in the upper elementary and the adolescent years, the teenage years. You can focus on things like that. So importance of play and playing with our child. If our child wants to play with us, whenever possible, we should dive into that lovely child-led play with them, and we're going to learn so much about what they're processing by being with them and observing their play and taking part in that role play. It's a beautiful way of bonding, but we're going to have such a beautiful insight into their world as well. So that's the first half. Let me just take a sip of water, and if you have any questions, then please do fire away. And excuse me. Then we're going to move on to the second part, which is all about playfulness. And again, this is something that's come up recently in my conversations with parents. Playfulness, and how playfulness and silliness and joy and laughter and dance and all of those things are so crucial for us building bonds and connection with our child, with our children. And I've put in my notes, and I've said this so many times, and I've done this live on this topic, and particularly on humour and playfulness, lots and lots of times. But it's the same quote every time, that hardly anything with our children is a serious teaching moment. Hardly anything needs to be discipline. The first thing that we should have is connection with our child, and humour and laughter, as we know from adults, is a great way of bonding and connecting. If we're in a tense business meeting, someone cracks a joke, that breaks the ice, makes everyone feel at ease. It's exactly the same with our children, particularly this toddler age, where there's a lot of power struggles because our child needs to assert their autonomy in this stage. It's part of it's their human need, it's their tendency, it's their drive, and it's their developmental stage. So they need to assert themselves. So there will be situations where your needs and their needs are going to be conflicted. And instead of forging ahead with the power struggle, which I've done many times as well, don't worry, I've made this mistake a lot of times. Instead of forging ahead with our power struggle and causing a power struggle, creating a power struggle, what we can do instead is use humour to diffuse the situation. When, our child refuses to get dressed, we can pretend to put their clothes on. We can take a pair of shorts and try and put them on their head, or on our head, or their undies on their arm, or something like that. Use humour and really silliness and playfulness as a way to bond and connect and to reduce those power struggles. As I say, very little needs to be a teaching moment, a serious teaching moment. Our children learn from us from the way that we conduct ourselves on a day-to-day basis. So our big scary talk, our big scary discipline talk, is not where the learning comes about discipline. the discipline and connection and respect of others and respect of property, that comes from the way we lead our daily lives, not from a lecture about dropping litter. I mean, and for me, like, dropping litter really is really triggering for me. So if any of my children do it, then, you know, it's pulling them back to that moment and seeing what went wrong, you know, why did they drop it, all of those things. But mostly it's knowing that the values of the home that I've created for myself and Olivia and Harry are that of respect of each other and respect of ourselves and respect of the community around us. So know that if some rubbish gets dropped on the floor because someone's having a funny day, it's not a reflection of the whole of my parenting, and it's not a reflection of the whole of my child. It might be that they need support in that moment and a reminder, but it's not that. We need to make that into a serious teaching moment. It's that could be actually a quite playful, oh my goodness, you know, mock horror, you've dropped something on the floor, or let me get that for you. You know, the less of a deal we make it from a you did something wrong. Once we add shame, actually, and this is what Brené Brown talks about in an amazing TED talk on vulnerability that she did, that I think is it the most or one of the most watched videos on YouTube. It's certainly in the top 3 watched videos on YouTube. If you haven't seen it, YouTube Vulnerability by Brené Brown on the TED Talk, and it's just amazing. And anyway, one of the things that she talks about in this vulnerability talk is that shame is such a big factor in the way that we interact with the world, interact with ourselves, interact with others. And so if when our child does something wrong, if we can connect with them to show them the right way without shame, without you did this, without shame, without blame, it's a much more nurturing and effective message long term. Because obviously the shouting and the how could you do that, that's so disrespectful, that may work in the moment. However, long term, that's not giving our child a chance of success, an opportunity to do it differently the following time. What we always want to do is offer our child a gift of learning how to do something differently the next time, but in a deeply loving and nurturing way, in a way that goes into their amygdala, not as a painful memory, but goes into their amygdala. That's the emotional memory of the brain. The amygdala, that goes into the amygdala, is a beautiful, soft learning moment that's sort of the nurturing element, almost like the cotton wool around our child, around our family. That's what we want to create with these, you know, minor infringements that every child does when they spit or they drop litter or they say a word they shouldn't, or they, you know, throw food. I don't mean a little child. Babies do throw food, and that's normal. But older children, you know, when they misbehave, if we can depersonalize it, turn it into a light-hearted moment, diffuse power struggles in that way, then it's just such a rich experience for the child and a more positive learning environment longer term for them. So playfulness is hugely important, and it's fun for us as well, you know. If we can get to this stage where our children, where we can be very triggered, very annoyed, very activated by something, and then if we can stay in that mode of I'm going to be playful here, I'm going to be playful, and all you need is kind of, I mean, I have just a couple of scenarios that I do that I know will work, and it's very much finding what works with each child. Harry loves if I do something silly, like a silly action. So if he's angry and shouting at me and being rude to me, you know, he's 4, so his you know, the structure of his language, he's extremely articulate, and so with that he can be extremely rude, and that's the sort of normal for this age group. There's lots of talking back and insolence, I think it would be called in the olden days. And so it's really on me to take, you know, lots of deep breaths and know that where we are. Ivana's given a really lovely question. I'll come back to that. Knowing what is our child's sweet spot for diffusing those difficult situations, for when you need to discipline but you don't want to discipline. Maybe when there's been something that's happened, and you want to say something to your child, but you want to say it in a playful way. It's finding that sweet spot. As I say, for Harry, it's actions. I can throw a sock at him if he's been really, really rude, and he'll immediately start laughing. For Olivia, it's more verbally. If I sing something or make up a silly rhyme or talk in a silly voice to her, and for her, she gets very, very annoyed. It's like, oh, Mama, stop it. But she'll keep engaging, she'll keep looking at me, or she'll stay in the room so she can carry on hearing what I'm saying. So it's really finding that sweet spot. For some children, it's going to be, a silly walk. For some children, it's going to be whistling. For some children, it's going to be, as I say, throwing a sock or using a silly voice. But it's finding that sweet spot so that we can navigate these inevitable power struggles, whether we have toddlers or hi Hetal, hi everyone who's joining, these inevitable power struggles that we have. It's completely normal. We can navigate these with ease and grace if we bring some humour in. And I said the example I gave earlier was pretending that, if our child won't get dressed, so we pretend to put their clothes on, or we say, okay, let's put your shorts on now, and try and put them on our child's head or our child's arm, in that really, really playful way, so we don't have this intense power struggle. And it works with older children as well as toddlers. So let me just check my notes before I do a recap. And Ivana has given us a really lovely question, which was, how do I react when others, for example, extended family and friends, react by shaming our child for having done something wrong? So I think the example she's given is hitting or throwing litter, for example. So how to react when others, so extended family and friends, react by shaming our child for having done something wrong. Great question, Ivana, and this actually ties into our discussion last week on Top Tip Tuesday as well. We had the similar scenarios of somebody trying to make another child share with our child, and we feel deeply uncomfortable about that. So the way I would deal with that, the way I would manage that, would be to stay really, really close to our child, and you narrate what is going on. So your child has hit another child because your child, Victor, really wants the other child's toy, for example. So he's then gone and hit the other child and tried to grab the toy. So I would narrate what's going on. So almost ignore the other friends or family members who were there and their judgment. It's for us to get really, really close, get on the child's level and say, oh, you really wanted to play with that spade, didn't you? You really wanted that car. I saw you really wanted it, and I know it's hard. And if we can get used to sort of narrating in that way, so saying out loud to our child what's happened, and then the other person will hear us say that as well, speak directly to our child. And then also, once you've said that to your child so that they know that they are seen and heard and validated by you, then someone else's words are going to have less value. But also you could then turn to the other adult and say, a sentence without removing the shame, and I just had it because we were talking about it last week, and now it's gone out of my head. It's going to come back, isn't it? We can just support the child with our words in terms of he really, really wanted that, and that was really, really difficult for him, and without getting into too much of a conversation with the other adult. Our focus should mainly be narrating to our child what's going on. And the reason for that are twofold. One, any other adults are going to hear, but the main thing is that our child is going to know for sure that we see and we hear and they validate, and we validate them. Because in those moments where they're snatching or hitting or biting or doing something wrong, they've got undeveloped impulse control. So they feel shame. If someone shouts at them or judges them, they feel shame, but they're not able to they're not able to internalize that. They're not able to cope with that feeling of shame. So it just gets worse for them, right? So what we can do is we can narrate what's going on, particularly if there's other people giving their opinion, and also that we can point out to our child that the other child is crying. Say, oh, he's crying because he wants to still play with the bus. He still wants to play with the spade. He's not ready to let go of it yet. And sort of narrate to our child and to everyone around what's going on. And then to say something directly to the other adults. Extended family member is particularly difficult, isn't it? It's narrating what's going on and trying to be the calm voice of reason and depersonalize it rather than making it about our child, if you see what I mean. You know, I would say a lot of, sharing's always difficult at this age, or I would make sort of broader blanket statements so to get myself out of tight spots where you really need a big conversation to cover the whole of this topic, hey? But if you've got someone who's passing judgments, then the best thing we can do is narrate to our child what's going on so the other person hears, and narrate to the other child who's upset what's going on as well, and that you're seeing and hearing and validating them, and then later turn to the adults. But our attention should be definitely on the children in this scenario. Let me take another sip of water and then we'll recap. And thank you so much, all of you, for joining. There's lots of people who've come in this evening. So to recap on play and playfulness. So play is the work of the child. It is extremely important. It is rich in all areas of development: cognitive, physical, emotional, spiritual, social, and language. So play is really, really important. There is no class, there is no activity, there is no game that is more important than our children having free time, unstructured, unscheduled play that is child-led, that is led by them. So everything, whether it's their teddies, their dollies, the Lego, the blocks, whatever they're doing, whatever they're dressing up, whatever they're constructing, whatever they're building, even from things from the kitchen cabinet, my children would take things out from the big saucepans and make towers and things out of those as well. Their play is of such value for them, and it's how they make sense of the world. We can see a really good window into their world through play, so that's another reason it's really vital. And then moving on to playfulness. Playfulness invites us to be children again ourselves, to invites us to remember what it was like when we were so joyful and we were so carefree. And playfulness is really, really important because it dissolves power struggles, and particularly so in the toddler stages that can be full of these push-pull dynamic the whole time, where a child is wanting to push away from us and get so much independence from us all the time. So and by playfulness I mean silly walks, silly dances, silly voices, mock horror, lots of theatrics, when you're trying to put on clothes, put the clothes on wrong or try and put the clothes on yourself. All of those things are really, really important to diffuse that intense energy that there is around any type of power struggle. So what else was I going to say? Yeah, chill out. Hardly anything is a serious teaching moment with our children. It's mostly, more than anything, building connection. It's all about building connection, and it's very rare that there is a serious teaching moment where we have to convey the precise thing in that moment. And remembering, if we're talking about younger children, they can absorb very, very few concepts. Everything has to be concrete for them. So their lived experience, play, doing a teddy role play to show a scenario about snatching or hitting or biting, that's really, really, really powerful. Depersonalize it from the child so they don't feel any shame, and make it fun and playful, and that goes into the amygdala as a really positive emotional memory. I think that's everything that I can say. Yeah, it's the really important thing is when we're being playful is what is the right type of silliness for my child, what really resonates with them, what really fills their love tank. Because once their love tank is full, I promise you, every child is cooperative. Every child can do all the things you want them to do, but when they feel connected, when they feel bonded to us, that's what's really, really important. More than anything else, our connection first, and everything else can come afterwards. So thank you so much for joining me. Please go to my website, enrichingenvironments.com, /shop for any courses, workshops I have coming up. The Conscious Parenting Program, which begins on the 13th of February. It's a 2-session program, 13th of February and 6th of March. Then I have my nanny training program, which is my best-selling, my most popular program, and that is on the 20th of February and the 20th of March. You can attend those either live here in Dubai in the Greens or online. And there's meditation for children online. All of these Instagram lives go on Insta. They go on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. My book, The Montessori Mission, will be being published in February, very, very shortly, just doing the last few bits and pieces. But in the meantime, if you wanted to listen to the podcast, then you can search Montessori Mission on iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube, and you will find that. Thank you so much for joining me, and keep in touch. Send me any more questions. Next week we are going to be talking about toddlers in detail, and we're going to be talking about hitting and biting and kicking and snatching and all of those toddler behaviours, which are completely normal and are very alarming to us as parents. Thanks so much for joining me, and I'll see you next week. Take care.